Dane and Derek is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. You can find content warnings in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, finally, to Dane and Derek, your favorite uncensored, unfiltered, unwhatevered podcast, where Dane and I talk about stuff. And today, I am Derek, as always, but what I do doesn't matter. Dane, you're up.
Hi, I am up, and just for everyone, I'm alive. Hi, I still live. I am the reason that we have been gone for so long. Sorry, but that also doesn't matter because we have a wonderful guest today. Someone near and dear to my heart, Derek's heart. I'm going to speak for you, Derek.
Yes, go ahead and speak.
This person is near and dear to Derek's heart too. Clara, hi.
Hi guys, it's me, Clara.
What's up?
Clara,
So excited.
I
When
need
you
you
say
to...
unfiltered and that makes it sound like you're about to drop some hot takes on the inherent differences between men and women or something.
Oh, no.
No, we just say bad words. We say bad word.
Derek just lets me say whatever I fucking want.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
Clara, you have been a quiet, secret member of this show for a very long time. Like many of our guests, like most of our guests, let's be real. It's very much like the MCU, or at least the very early in the MCU, where someone would float in the background for a really long time and then they get to come forward. Because you're in a lot of our stories. So it's really good to have you here.
Thank you. I listened to the Leah episode, so it was I was telling, it was a phone conversation with my 3 friends that I just happened to not be able to weigh in on. I was imagining what I would be adding, because it's I'm being name dropped right now.
Yeah, that's entirely accurate. Entirely accurate.
There's definitely been episodes where we've been oh, we should talk to Clara about this. Oh, we should have Clara on to talk about this. Oh, why isn't Clara here? We've definitely said that at the ends of some episodes. So if you're wondering who Clara is, this is that Clara.
So what do you do? Tell people. A lot of the people are gonna know. And we know, but pretend we didn't. Pretend we didn't know how we knew you for the last 10 years? 12 years.
More than that, yeah.
12 years.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
All right, well, for the audience, for the MCU fans, I am an artist. I'm working right now at Cartoon Network on a show called We Baby Bears. I'm a color stylist. Yeah.
What is a color stylist?
Oh yeah, that's a great.
So I always kind of struggle with how to explain color styling to a layman, but it's on a 2D animated show like I work on. Everything that moves, so a character or a prop that needs to have color chosen for it. So I'll receive the finished backgrounds for the show, and then I'll receive the black and white lines, and I make sure that the colors of a character match up with the lighting of the background. So let's say our main characters have to be in sunset. I will adjust their colors so they don't pop out. Or let's say we have a new prop. I get to decide what colors those are going to be.
So you're the person who makes the old Hanna-Barbera, you can pull out exactly what object is about to be interacted with.
Exactly.
You make sure that doesn't happen anymore, basically.
Well, yeah, we can try to make that not happen, but depending on the style of the show, sometimes even today, it can be so obvious what things are going to be interacted with. I find it really charming when that's the case, when something totally stands out and you're I wonder if a character is going to interact with that.
Oh, I didn't even know. Now that you mentioned that, I wouldn't have even guessed that there are certain items that are color-coded to be interacted with. That's wild.
Yeah. Usually, if this style does not quite match up, usually if something is flat and doesn't have any, gradient or shading, that's because it needs to be animated. So it's a lot harder to animate something with a lot of detail on a 2D animated show, because those things get made really fast. Some of the ones that have very high budget, you can see like really detailed shading on the animated things, but typically you'll just have a flat color or a flat couple of colors, as opposed to backgrounds which can be more detailed or more rendered because they're not moving.
Oh.
So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Totally.
Not sure if that reads at all.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I choose colors. That's
Yeah.
the simple explanation of it.
You go to the animations version of Home Depot and pick out color chips for every scene.
Yeah.
Ah.
Nice.
Honestly, that is the best part about going to a Home Depot. Is
I know.
collecting all the color cards. It's like a free version of Pokemon.
I know.
Ah.
And I just like that makes me think I always thought that like universally the like color process was everyone's favorite part of like working in animation, like going to school. I was like, yeah, color is the best part, and then like other things are hard, but color is super easy for everyone, right? No, that is not the case. So it's like, oh my god, I do have a niche. We're jumping
Nice.
right into the artist stuff. We were planning on having
Mhm.
like artistic journey being like part 2 of the saga.
Nah,
should.
it's
Yeah.
Derek and I can't escape this.
Yeah.
Like that's like 60% of what we talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 60% art and artistic process,
Mhm.
like 30% Dungeons and Dragons, 10% Dragon Age 2 specifically, and then maybe we do other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe there's like 0.1% something else.
Uh-huh.
But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, like, I guess, like, the three of us here we were part of the Biff crew along with
Mhm.
Will Bangs,
Mhm.
which we've talked about on the show. But we did a lot of film stuff in high school, which is where we all met.
Yes.
Yep.
Monarch High School. Let's go Yotes.
Oh
Go
god.
Yotes.
Let's go Yotes.
We did not even really say while we were there. That was
Okay.
something that got adopted in like 2015.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay, gotta say, I interact with Monarch High way too much these
yeah.
days. Like
Really?
way too. Oh, it's because my sister's gone.
Yeah, you still have an
Oh,
attachment there.
Yeah.
I forgot.
I hate it more. I thought I fucking hated it. I hate it so
That is
much now.
impressive.
Like oh my
The
god,
fact
I
that
do
you
not.
thought you hated it and didn't
I-
acknowledge you did hate it.
It's gotten worse. Is the thing. Like that's the thing. Is like Clara, and I'm sure you can relate to this. Louisville and Superior have somehow gotten whiter and richer. Like, and so Monarch, like my sister tells me, she's like, I don't even know what to do. There are like Teslas in the J lot, and I'm like,
There are?
yeah, and I'm like, okay, I
J-Lot's
can't.
paved, right?
Yeah, J lot is also now paved,
So it's not a rite of passage anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, they act like it still is. I don't know. Like, I can't. And maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm just old. Law school is making me feel older than I expected, actually, for the same reason. So yeah, no, I thought I hated Monarch. I hate it more now. Yeah, but we also met in jazz band. Though
Yes.
you guys knew each other in middle school, maybe?
No.
No.
I went to Monarch K8 and Derek went to El Dorado.
Yep, El Dorado.
Right.
You went to Louisville Middle. LMS.
Louisville Middle. Yep.
LMS, MK8, and EK8.
Yeah.
Whatever our acronyms were.
So was jazz band first year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been
Okay.
freshman, yeah.
Oh my god.
Because,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Dane and I were saxophonists, and you were on piano.
Yes. Oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
I always felt a teeny bit out of my depth in jazz band. I felt like I was just getting by with the level of piano skills that I had. I feel like I'm probably not alone in feeling that way, but I had really high standards for myself, and I was like, I need to be like improvising on like a jazz classics level. I need to like my solos need to be the best. No, I always found ways to stress myself out artistically.
No,
I didn't feel competent in jazz band until junior year. So yeah.
Yeah, I never. It was one of those things where I loved being in jazz band. I had a lot of fun,
Oh yeah, it was so fun.
but like I knew when I didn't make Jazz 3 junior year, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet, and yeah.
I do remember the test for Jazz 3, because I didn't end up going into Jazz 3, but I did the test, and I did not really know how to read guitar tabs. I didn't know how to read jazz chords. I was just like the absolute basics of sheet music reading, but the test involved reading those chords, and I think I remember even being like, Miss Church, I don't really know how to read these, should I? And she's like, why don't you just try? So I did try. Apparently I did a good job, because apparently I would have gotten into Jazz 3, but I ended up having a schedule conflict, because that was the first year of Arabic being offered.
Right.
I have to take that.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
I remember. Okay, yeah.
Upside for you, though, is that when I got to college for music, I realized I didn't know how to read rhythm, or most music, really, and that I had been playing mostly like 60 to 70% by ear most of my music career. So you were doing way better than me in that regard.
Yeah.
A thing I learned later is that other people did not go home and practice by finding the music and listening to it and matching the notes until I could just play it.
Oh yeah, I still did a lot of that too, because
Yeah.
I feel like if you have any sort of innate sense of music, which like us three do, like listening goes a lot farther than reading it off a piece of paper. Maybe I should speak for myself. Yeah, but I feel like imitating was just easier, less technical, more innate.
It gets you a really long way. And then I had a really difficult first year and a half of college.
I didn't know. I thought you were just always good at sight reading.
No. Actually, funnily enough, sight reading is the thing I was worst at because I hadn't gotten a chance to hear it yet.
Oh.
Sight reading is so scary.
Yeah.
So what would happen is I would be really bad the very first day. I got music, and then I would spend I would spend hours catching up, and then I would do much better. And that was something that, and I didn't even figure out that I was really like behind even in my senior year of high school, because I knew Miss Church well enough that I could just go to her and be like, hey, what are we playing next? And she would give me the list, and I would go listen beforehand.
Oh man, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought you were really good at sight reading.
No.
That's like the one thing I've never been able to do is like sight read. Like if I can hear it, like just what the two of you are saying, if I can hear it, I can probably keep up. Especially when it comes to like, if I can hear the chord changes, I can roughly figure out like what notes are not going to sound out of key.
Right.
But I only know one scale, the money scale. Thanks, Mr. Lewis.
Everyone loves the money scale.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, oh man, dang, that must have been rough.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's like what so many musicians have to do is sight read.
Yeah, and so that's the thing that happened in undergrad was I got hit real hard because I couldn't do the sight reading. I couldn't read. And so like the funny thing is I could end up like putting together like theoretical notes really, really well in like a theory class, because that's like half of jazz is understanding what's in a chord, and that's most of theory. But like if I was handed a piece of music by my professor, I couldn't play it. Like I just couldn't get through a measure by myself in a studio with just me and my professor. And so it was a year and a half of me learning how to properly read music. And I don't think I was able to properly sight read until the end of sophomore year. Afterwards, I was much, much better. So that's, yeah. So you can get you a long way. And like in some genres, if you just stay in it, like if I just kept doing like combo jazz or something, I'm sure I never would have really figured that out.
Huh.
Was that
But-
learning process like fun, or did it feel productive, or did it just, because it sounds kind of miserable?
It was panic inducing because I was expected to still play, and so I still needed to do my thing that I'd been doing to learn how to play music before, and I had to spend all this time, like I was using like rhythm apps obsessively. Every class was like a nightmare because I would get to bring a law school term into a music setting, I would get cold called and like made to play in front of people, and to add it on to it, I had like an abusive professor who was telling me like I was a bad person because I couldn't get it, and like would be berating me and like the full whiplash.
Oh,
yeah, like
jeez.
I would get like music stands thrown at me. I would literally play and practice until like my lips were like bleeding out from the inside. Oh, sorry.
My
Yeah.
God.
I would not survive.
Yeah. Dang.
I would be crying.
I had no idea. Like, no wonder you don't play saxophone anymore. Like,
No. I only play the piano and sing now. That is, I do not. I can see the saxophone in a corner in a closet, and no.
Oh man. Dang.
Yeah, but anyways.
Do you
Well, I'm
still?
glad you're out of that.
Oh yeah. We're definitely
Me too.
Dang.
Yeah.
Do you still play piano, Clara?
I do, yeah. That, I've sort of played it on and off as just like a hobby if I have free time. That was something that, for the past 2 years, I've been like injured on and off. Like I've had a repetitive stress injury in one or both of my wrists. So that, well, first off, it made it hard to draw and made it hard to do my job. That was especially not fun. But it also, like, a lot of my hobbies that involved any sort of like dexterity or manual skill, unfortunately, went by the wayside. But just like, in fact, a couple months ago is when I started trying again, like just testing the waters to see if a couple minutes at the piano would hurt me or not. And it like, I'm finally back in it. Like there was this like little session that I tried. It was like after 20 minutes or so, I like wasn't feeling the pain. It was like, oh my God, I'm back. So that was especially nice. And I don't play it with any sort of seriousness. Like I totally just noodle around. Like my favorite thing to do is just like look at all of the songs that I've been listening to lately, like movie soundtracks or just pop songs, and like put them on in my headphones and try to play along with them. Like that is super fun for me. Just like trying to kind of figure out the song and like understand it a little better. Sometimes I'll try to play a song and I'll realize like, oh, this is way out of my like skill level. This is a complex song. But then sometimes I'll be like, oh, these are just some cute 4 chords. Like I understand what's going on. So that's very fun. And I love just whatever video game I'm playing, if I can like find some sheet music for that. That's what I've always done. Like that has always been my sort of like indulgent piano passion, is just finding sheet music for a soundtrack, especially a video game soundtrack, and learning to play it. My parents have even like become attuned to like, okay, Zelda songs and How to Train Your Dragon songs. Or Studio Ghibli. Those are kind of, that's like, those are the main 3 of like the nerdy songs that I like to play.
Yeah. I have a story that relates to this. So I kind of moving it, like I play some more video game soundtrack stuff than I used to, because obviously that's not super respectable in music school, because art school is weird. Anyways, so I do more now, but that stuff is gorgeous, right? Like so much of that music is just really, really good. Do either of you know Hyper Light Drifter, the game?
Yeah.
Derek does.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I know of it.
I've not played it, but I have it downloaded on both my Switch and my Steam Deck. And I have not opened it yet.
It's super good, worth your time. It's very classic Legend of Zelda, but definitely they have played Dark Souls, if that makes any sense.
Oh boy.
But anyways, that aside, the main piece written for it is this like gorgeous 6.5 to 7 minute long piano piece, usually done with some synths, but it's also written in free time, which is like a really high end neoclassical high art music thing.
Like
but it's
rubato.
no, beyond that. Free time is there are no bars, there's no measures, there's no time signature at all. And so the idea is to just play. You just play it, like that's the idea, and I think it's a really gorgeous way. It's also to me very silly because it's like circling back around to like, oh yeah, three people with a guitar are gonna count off, and then they just sort of stay together, and it's fine. It's high art circling back around to low art, thinking it's discovered something. Anyways, I'll take it off my soapbox to tell my story.
Who did the music for that?
A guy called Disaster Piece. He kind of hides behind. Yeah, super good.
He
But
did the music for It Follows.
he did. Super cool. That one's more unsettling. This is less unsettling. But anyways, I learned the piece on piano, and I would say it's the most technically impressive piece of music I know, and the piece of music on the piano that I know best by heart. So this was a couple Christmases ago. Gracie and I go home, well, home, not home, her home in LA. We go to LA to her family's for Christmas. Some of her family is quite well off, like own a Steinway piano for the fun of it. Even though nobody really plays in the family. It's like our girls were taking piano lessons, so we got them the best. Of course we did. I know it's really hard. But her grandfather at the time would play, and anyone else who felt like playing was voluntold to play. So Gracie told me as we were like leaving, she's like, "You should bring some sheet music. You were going to be plopped up on the piano and expected to play."
Getting like secondhand anxiety just thinking about that.
Yeah. And like part of it has to do, and she told me that like part of it was gonna be a little bit about the fact that like they really like having like perfect Christmas card sort of moments, like Hallmark moments. And a Hallmark moment would be to have a little family concert by someone who's very good by their standards, because the equivalent of being very good is not actually being good at the piano, it's being recognized as being good by an institution, right? Yeah. So I get up there and I'm like, what am I gonna play? I've brought all my sheet music, and I look through, like I've literally got like impressionist stuff, and I'm like, you know what, I'm stressed. This piece is 6 minutes long, and you know what? It's high arty enough that they are not going to know that they're going to be listening to a video game soundtrack for the next. I can stretch this to 8 minutes, like. And so I play, and I get off there, and they're like, "Oh, what's this piece?" And I go on about the free time so that they can feel smart, and they're like, "Who's it by?" And I'm like, "Oh, he goes by a pseudonym, Disaster Piece, because he likes to stay away from the public eye." And they're like, "Oh, wow, that's wild."
You were selling it.
Yeah.
I was selling it hard, and I felt good on the inside. I was like, yeah, and you know what? Video games are good, and soundtracks are good, and you guys can enjoy them, and I'm gonna sneak it in there. And just like one of these people, one of their eldest daughters sneaks in books by like Hillary Clinton and like Obama and stuff to their reading, just by like taking like the dust jackets off and whatnot. It's very funny.
This is a Looney Tunes solution.
Yeah, it's all Looney Tunes solutions. It's I just really relate, and Claire, you called it like an indulgence. And I'm at the point, I don't know if you are, but where I'm just like, I'm really tired of having to defend things that just make me happy. and art that's just, it's good on its own merits, and like it just doesn't need to be, I don't think it needs to be defended, you know, because there are just people who just aren't gonna get it or are gonna write it off for not being recognized in a particular way or by the right people, and I just think those people are missing out. And I don't know.
And I think especially since, you know, being in music academia like you are so used to the institution, like the very, what is considered acceptable, what is considered high art, which, like, sounds terrible. I would buckle under that pressure, because I also have like the passion for video game soundtracks, which are totally looked down upon, but, well, maybe not looked down upon, aren't institutionalized. But there is just such a broad spectrum of, like, gorgeous experimental music that, like, I mean, you're missing out if you're not in tune to that.
Yeah, I got into an argument with a professor once in undergrad, because she was doing like a musicology class, and I wanted to write a paper on the Banner Saga.
Oh, that's Austin Wintory, right?
Yeah, Austin Wintory's.
Oh my God. We could talk for a whole episode about Austin Wintory.
Oh yeah, we totally can. So I'm going to try and steer that away because I have a whole 25-page paper because I ended up winning this argument.
Wow.
And spoke in front of the college on this, but I got into an argument with my professor about this because she was like, "This is not acceptable. If you want to analyze music in this way, there are operas, there are like, if you want to do the whole, like, talk about leitmotif, like, you could go other places." And I told her, I was like, "Listen, on average, how many people do you think actually go to the symphony every year or to see a stage performance of something? The number is astronomically low. But if you actually think about the number of people who play a video game in a year, that same number of people has listened to an entire symphony." Like, I ended up arguing more on Skyrim because she knew it already, or knew of it, like the name was enough. And I was like, listen, the number of people who have played Skyrim and can hear the motifs in that soundtrack is so much higher than anything being modernly written. If you want to know where, like, people are actually listening to what you would call, like, lower case C classical music, it's in video game soundtracks more than anywhere else.
Absolutely.
Because you'll sit there, like, how many people, like, so many people, like, between the three of us, Derek, how much have you played Skyrim? Like 20 hours in 7 or 8 different attempts?
Like 80 hours, actually.
Oh, 80 hours. All right. I was, like, at least between.
Yeah.
Clara, have you played Skyrim?
No, I thought it was ugly.
Fair enough. Visually, it's not a good, it's not.
Sorry.
Wow.
Soundtrack though, worth it. Soundtrack is gorgeous, but
Jeremy Soule. Right?
Yeah, Skyrim did come out in that weird period of video games where everything is brown and gray, but
I'm sure I was missing out. Yeah.
But between Derek and I, we have, like, I think 180 hours of listening to that fucking soundtrack, barring, not even taking out the fact that, like, I've listened to it separately. I think it's kind of ridiculous, like, to think that, like, this isn't a place to really put some focus and energy, you know. But I don't like. What I'm saying is, art school sometimes really sucks.
Yeah. I don't know if all three of us in a room have talked about art school, because all three of us went to art school.
We are all artists.
Yeah.
We are each a different breed of artist.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that type of artist.
Different cut of artists. Different slice, different.
Anyway.
I don't know.
Hunter, we're all different hunters. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. And each of us has a different experience with art school and having to face, like, an academic version of what started off as a hobby for us.
Yes. Which, to that...
Where do we even start with that?
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's...
back to the beginning.
Derek and I finished. Clara, you did not. But
only by a semester, but yeah, I was out of there.
But you work most directly in your own field. Like, the most directly.
I guess that is true.
Yes.
Derek works directly in his
I'm like laterally, yeah.
Yeah. I finished. I play music only for my own funsies anymore, and I'm in law school. So
That is a really good point, Dane. We are sort of also a spectrum of post-art school, what you do. But I remember, Clara, you were telling me that Cal Arts has one of the worst graduation rates in the country because everyone gets onto a show, usually their senior year. And I remember you were telling me this like before we went off to college. And then it happened for you in a way, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even know, like, that school didn't even, like, quantify graduation rates, like, as a merit or anything, because it was almost expected that a huge chunk of students would not finish out the degree because they would just, like, accumulate the skills and accumulate the portfolio and just, like, jump onto a show, jump onto a project, you know, like save the money, save the strife. And, like, everyone has their own reasons for doing that, if that is the case. Some people like need to finish the degree, etc. For me in particular, it's it started off not complicated and then got so complicated. My first 2 years of school were like really difficult. Like, they really put you through animation boot camp because there's like there are so many subsets of animation. They throw everything at you. I went to Cal Arts, for people that don't know, in the character animation program, and you learn 2D animation, you learn CG animation, you learn CG rigging, modeling, you learn visual development, design, like all sorts of stuff. And like it was grueling because it was just the sheer amount of hours and the sheer amount of homework that we had was extremely difficult. And like it is, you know, that absolutely forced us to find out what we were good and bad at the very hands-on way, the very concrete way. And also having to do our student films. Every year we create a final project, a final film. So it's, in a way, we have a final thesis every year as opposed to at the end of 4 years. So it was incredibly challenging. Partway into my third year, I had like a hurricane of different problems that culminated in me having to take a leave of absence from school. I came back a semester later, but I was offset one semester because I had to leave in the middle of the semester. And after returning to school for one more year, one semester away from graduating, I was like, I'm done. I gotta be done. I was confident enough in my ability to have my portfolio be my effectively my degree. Really, your portfolio is what you need to have built up in order to apply for jobs. So I feel very lucky that the degree does not matter as much in this particular field.
Yeah.
So that is what ended up happening. I finished school, finished, whatever you want to call it, in spring of 2018, and then fall of 2018, I started on the show High Guardian Spice, which was a whole situation of a show. Also, that we could take a whole sidebar to talk about. But I think, why did I go through this whole anecdote just now? Just like being faced with art school, being faced with the challenge. Oh, and not graduate. That was the.
Yeah, because we're kind of 3 different phases of art school and post-grad. Yeah.
So positive or negative on art school as a whole, then?
Oh, God. I think, honestly, it almost feels like a net neutral for me, because I had some of the worst times of my life, for sure, both personally and academically, but the skills that I were able to build up are undeniable. Like it has a really rigorous program, and the amount of like really usable and beneficial skills they give you, like there really is a lot. Like I definitely got like a high tier education, I guess you could say, just at kind of like a high personal cost. So it's difficult to quantify. And I also definitely like, I don't feel like I could speak for any other person. Like I don't rightly know if I could recommend art school or CalArts to anyone else, because it becomes such a personal thing. But for me, like net neutral is the best way I can describe it.
That's good, I think.
Could be worse.
Yeah, exactly. It could be a lot worse. And so I'm glad it's not. I'm glad you survived art school.
Yeah,
I feel like,
by the skin of my teeth.
yeah, because I feel like, because it's just like art in context of academia and art in context of the industry are two very different things, I feel, especially that you and I deal with, Clara. Because in the industry, the degree doesn't matter so much. It's more those hard technical skills and the portfolio that matters. And those were like the things that I did not walk away from with art school. I did not walk away with a portfolio. I did not walk away with any specific skills, which made finding work not necessarily even more difficult, but it locked me out of some doors that are now just reopening because it took time to rebuild some of those skills. But yeah, art school's weird.
Do you feel like your education was more on like the theory side then versus the concrete?
My school was a technical school
as
well, but I also had some of the worst and best times of my life in art school.
Yeah.
And I think because of my program, there were certain financial barriers that prevented me from pursuing more technical skill training at school. And I think that was interesting to kind of notice and see. In addition to, I think like every artist, I feel like you go through like a crisis of faith at some points and like trying to like rebuild what you are as an artist. And I had one of those sophomore through senior year. It wasn't until like 2 weeks before graduation that I was like, I've done everything else, and the only thing that I seem to be positively okay at is directing, and I still really want to do that. But up until like 2 weeks before graduation, I was like, maybe I should quit film altogether. So art school's weird. And like I took one course of animation, and I can't imagine doing like 3+ years of that. Because that one semester kicked my ass.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember staying up so late, like hand animating, like trying to finish storyboards for a project, and then submitting it and watching it in a classroom full of people, and just being like absolutely like, oh my god, what have I done? But I don't know. I feel like the best and equally worst part about art school is that all the things that like you fell in love with about art in like high school and like middle school, all those things get broken down and rearranged, and then you really figure out what you really like about it. Like in a way, it kind of returns you to when you first discovered art, which I didn't realize until like recently.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think that was also my experience, that it was like everything I knew or I thought I knew sort of got like blown apart and deconstructed. And it was up to me to kind of put it back together and understand what it did mean for me. Like you were talking about like an animation class with boarding. Like for me, the actual like animation itself in terms of like making things move, I was not good at that. Boarding and story, I was also not great at that. Like I can do it, but I'm very slow at it, so it means that it like I did not consider it a feasible job. The like visual development and concept art and design, that was kind of always my jam, and it was a matter of discerning what jobs actually suit that skill set. as opposed to like, what I loved to do in high school was just like essentially more like illustration, honestly.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of rearrange my skills, re-emphasize my skills, to orient them to being relevant to a job. And I do feel like I did it. Like, I feel really lucky, although it's not luck. Like, I had to work really hard for it, but like, the core of like what I love to do, like, a core aspect of that is in my job. Like, I always loved colors, and now I'm doing colors for a job. So that is great. But just again, the extreme personal cost and just financially the literal cost. I am thousands of dollars in debt, you guys. That's the cost.
Yeah, that's the difficult part about art school. I have my boss also went to Cal Arts.
Oh.
For the graduate program in like visual design. He did like sculpting and film art and video art. It was interesting. But he was talking about like the idea of a teacher recommending you go to art school as being reckless. Because like in high school, like I don't know if you had any like mentors in high school that recommended art school, but
sort of. I think it was pretty clear that was one of my main options the entire time, because I obviously like art was my thing. I always loved doing art, and it was hard for me to picture any other job. Like, I considered linguistics as well, because that was like another one of my passions. But that, just in terms of like actual jobs, like lucrative professions, like frankly there are not as many in linguistics, so I guess I still did have that pragmatic piece in mind. So I think like Mrs. Overton, or she goes by Claudia Listella now, she was my art teacher a handful of times. She sort of acted as a mentor for me. So I don't even know that it was like she recommended. I think it was like I kind of knew. So she was like, let's help you along that path. So I think like part of why it probably didn't seem reckless is because animation is an industry. Like, there are industry jobs. It's not as precarious as other art jobs, although it is precarious, as we've seen for the past couple months. Netflix earlier in the year, Cartoon Network and Warner Media last month. That was dicey.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. You guys have a completely different experience than I do, honestly.
Yeah.
How about you, Dane? Get into it.
Yeah.
So for starters, I will go on the whole whiplash and all positive. Believe it or not.
Okay.
I did not. It was not a skills based. Like, all music school is gonna be somewhat skills based because it's performance art, right? But it was definitely a much more academic and like research education based program than like, here, we're gonna get you out and we're gonna get you performing for money plan.
Okay.
But there were just like some amazing things, and the whole whiplash thing was pretty cordoned off into the saxophone world. And so around junior year, I was in more choirs than I was in instrumental ensembles, and I was TAing and doing academic research, and singing a bunch, doing way more piano and all of these things. And so that eventually, by senior year, I was in almost as many creative writing classes as I was choir classes, and then just a couple of side saxophone stuff that I needed for my degree. So it was a very sideways about it. And I will also say, unlike you guys, where you guys felt like you got it like dissected, pulled apart, and like you reforged it, I will say, despite my still enjoyment of playing the piano, it did end up getting destroyed. Like, it was gone. and like, you know, like it's been like 4 years out, and for 4 years I've like low-key thought about joining some choirs in the area, or maybe even a jazz band, and it's never materialized. I can never generate the energy for it. But what I did come out with is a realization of like, it doesn't matter for me at the end of the day. It didn't have to be music. I can still be creative in my own way outside of music. And so I write now. Like, I define myself more, I think of myself more as a person who writes, and less, almost not at all, as a person who plays music anymore. And the other thing I learned is that I thrive in academic, and by a greater extension, intellectual challenge. And so basically I came through that after cancer, after frustration in high school, feeling less like it maybe it destroyed my love of music, but it definitely didn't. It left me with more options in terms of feeling like, okay, I am not just some like ball of fire that just is going to burn out somewhere. Like, I can do things, and that's good. And so that's why it's a net positive. I would not necessarily really recommend anybody go to music school if all you want to do is, like, if what you love about music is you like writing songs on the guitar and performing, do not go to music school. Like, that's not going to help you out, my friend. Like, there are a couple of music schools that might help you there, but not enough. I would say if you want to go to college, but go perform. Just like, go play. Go write your songs. Find some people to do it with if you want to do that. If not, also great. Like, just do it. Like, that's a much better place, because academia is not the place to... Okay, no, one exception. If you really like experimental composed music, yeah, go to academia. But like, that's not what it is. It's not a skills space. It's a studying space. And it's a place where music teachers can be crafted. And that's all very well and good. So yeah, it was a very weird experience. And I will say, even though I look back on it with like positive, like a positive lens, I'm more grateful for the creative writing stuff I got, because I had an amazing professor, and that amazing professor taught me more practical writing stuff in a year than the 4 years of music combined. And so, like, I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for all the academic research and teaching opportunities I got. But it's really weird, because I'm not doing professionally. I'm not even laterally involved anymore. And I'm quite happy. Even as tired as I am in law school, I am very much in the right place. But I wouldn't have known if I hadn't gone to music school that I would have been happy there, because what I learned was, like, I love being fucking challenged intellectually every day. And I have other feelings about law school, about like complicated feelings about like the system of law and this whole thing. Like, law school's wild, you guys. Like, Clara, you went to Cal Arts, which is all an art. It's a whole art school, so like the money isn't quite the same. But like, Derek, I'm sure you know this, but like most art programs in any school you ever go to are always underfunded. I have never been in a well-funded academic situation. Like, here's the thing. Like, I went touring in Europe to sing with the choirs, and like we had to pay our way to get there. Like, we had to pay our own plane tickets. It's not that the school did nothing, but we did have to pay our own plane tickets. But if I do like the international like law program, and I'm on the team, they'll just ship us there. They'll just like, all right, we're shipping you to Vienna. Like there's just money floating around. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a
is
side point.
unfamiliar, yeah.
It's very strange. Yeah, like you could, like every club, like student organization, most of them actually are for credit, like class credit, basically. But they just, all of them have money to like just buy food. Like they don't even think about it. If there's a meeting there's going to be food there that they just paid for. It's wild. And anyways, so yeah, it's very odd to have gone to art school, to not really recommend people go to art school, think that art school kind of is bad for the art form because it's stifling and elitist, but also be like, it was good and it was good for me and I'm here, like,
Yeah.
you know, and so like to hear you guys talk about like the practical skills. And Clara, I think like finished is a great word. I kind of had this image in my head for a second there of like, what if CalArts wasn't like on a weird 4-year time frame? Like, what if the goal wasn't to graduate anybody? That the goal is like, you show up here and we're going to teach you skills until you get your job. That's what you're going to do. There's no graduation point. It's wild. I know. It's kind of like a weird idea in my head, but like...
That sounds like a great art school.
Yeah, like I was like...
Stay until you're done.
Yep,
Stay until you're done. Yeah.
Stay until you get your first industry job.
Yeah, stay until...
Yeah.
Stay until you have a thing under your belt that your grades is way better on a resume than your grades. You know? Like, for the first time in my life, I'm actually getting a degree where I'm like, if I didn't have degree X, they would not let me do this.
Right. Yeah, like you need that piece of paper.
Yeah, it's not like, up until now my piece of paper was just like, this qualifies me for this job, and now I have to prove I actually have experience to do this job on the side. You know, it's not about the piece of paper, whereas with this I'm like, okay, I have my piece of paper, I still need job experience, but this qualifies me to do this job at all, and if you don't have this piece of paper and have passed this test, no one's ever going to hire you, in the same way that no medical degree, you are not performing surgery on me, my friend. Like, it's a similar thing, and it's very, very odd. It's very different. But I don't feel less of an artist, you know? Like, I write novels now, and I'd love to work on getting them published and stuff, but like, it's just very different.
Well, yeah, I think there's something to be said about doing the art. And I think that's always been the hardest part about being an artist, is creating things that you are enjoying, you know, and creating things that are for yourself, or like are just like, I don't know, like complete-ish. I say ish because nothing's ever complete, but like Clara, like your Twitter feed of art is like, I mean, I would say like you're probably the most popular guest we've had.
Popular. Oh my god.
Yeah, the most famous person we've had on the show, because you have like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 Twitter followers.
Oh, don't tell me. I deliberately don't look at my followers, because that like up until like last year, that is something that I got like obsessive over, and that's something that I would like use to beat myself up. Like if I thought the number was going down, I would like interpret that as a personal failing. That was like is very complicated, because like Twitter. And also, like, Tumblr, it's a whole journey. Like, posting my art online, I started doing that very, very young. Like, pretty much as soon as I was using the internet. So that immediately, like, the response of people, my peers online towards my art, that pretty much from jump was tied into my sense of self-worth. And, you know, starting on Okaki boards, and then onto DeviantArt when I was in middle school, Tumblr when I was in high school, Twitter when I was in college. High school especially, like, I was so deeply insecure about my art, because it was just, like, intrinsically locked with the response or lack thereof that I would get on Tumblr, like, you know, just number go up. I was so obsessed with number go up. And then getting into college, and especially at the end of college and finishing college, your online presence suddenly is not personal anymore. It also has to be your professional presence. And that, like, just totally did my head in, because, like, on a sort of personal art level, I feel like it would have been really gratifying for me to, like, kind of be able to step back and reassess how I like find pride in my art, or like try to detach the numbers kind of approval. But like at a certain point, I have to keep up that presence, or I had to, because like I know for a fact recruiters look on Twitter, recruiters look at your online presence. Like, you know, it's supposed to be that our portfolio website, like, ooh, clarahorst.com, go look at it, is great. That is like my professional presentation of myself, but even your casual presentation of yourself gets looked at by recruiters. So it became this really bizarre balance of like, I have to be online, I have to just either be swallowed up by the numbers or detach myself from the numbers. And this you know, like, decade-long issue of mine has finally gone away now that I am solidly employed. Yay! Applause. No, which, like, is almost kind of like, I don't know if that's quite sad to say. It's sad only in the sense that, like, if someone else was having the same problem as me, I wouldn't be able to, like, give them full advice, because I can't just say, well, get a job.
Yeah, no,
Get a job and you'll feel so great about yourself.
No,
But, I mean, in terms of, like, online following, I've, like, gained a following primarily because I post fan art. I love doing fan art. So that is what a lot of people follow me for. I think, like, probably 10% of my following is my peers, and the rest is people that like my Zelda drawings. Thanks, guys. But I still do. I sort of value that 10% a little bit more, because those are, like I said, they're my peers.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit complicated, but that the reason we got on that topic was personal art, finding time for personal art. That has definitely been a journey for me. I had such a huge output of personal art all throughout school, middle school, high school, college, college especially, because I was just like, I was drawing all the time for classes, so I was also drawing all the time for myself. And my output continued to be pretty high once school was finished, because I had the stamina for it. But then the aforementioned injuries that I had starting in summer of 2020 and then continued on and off until 2021, that had a significant effect on my hobby drawing. And like, my current job, I started on it in November of 2020, and my injury, like, I was able to manage it in order to do my job. It definitely had an effect, but I was able to do it. But what that meant is that pretty much like 95% of my stamina physically would be used up by my job, and then the rest had to go to like cooking and folding laundry, you know, if that. So like, and you know, even without any sort of injury, plenty of people have trouble balancing a professional art job or any professional full-time job with having enough energy for doing your personal work. So that is like something that I have been negotiating and renegotiating throughout all of my past 2 years. I do feel like I'm in a pretty healthy place with it.
Woo.
Yeah, I know, because
Love to hear that.
I'm feeling physically better, physically more healthy. The pain is under control, and also I've just done a lot of like, kind of just amounts to being patient with myself, being understanding with what my current capabilities are for personal art, personal creation. It's so easy to like look back on even like 2018, 2019, all of the art I was doing, like, oh, so fun. Like, it feels so productive. And it's like, especially fan art, like, that is sort of how it's my special way of interacting with things that I really like. Like, it sort of helps me codify my interest in something, like, you know, drawing something, kind of like figuring out the designs for it, like putting it into my own art sensibilities. Like, that was sort of this like extra level of ways of engaging in media for me, and it like really did my head in to lose that. Made me feel like I like wasn't consuming media properly, which is like very bizarre because it's only by my own standards. But that is also something that I kind of just had to get out of my head because, you know, my capabilities are different. They're always changing. So right now where I'm at with personal art, like if I happen to draw something once every 6 weeks, every 2 months, that's plenty. That rules.
Yeah. I think that's something that like you and I have talked about a lot is like
Yeah.
finding that balance and like finding the difference between like do I want to draw something quote unquote original or do I want to just keep drawing fan art because I like drawing fan art?
Yeah.
And like I've always really admired the fact that like you're able to acknowledge that like yeah, I really love drawing fan art and I just want to keep drawing like all this fan art. And I've always like really appreciated that because I don't think that desire to just draw stuff you like is like I feel like there's so many people that don't want to acknowledge that because it feels embarrassing or it feels like it's not going to be like respectable, but like it is totally respectable. Like I often think about how there's so many like filmmakers in this day and age that are getting hired to do commercials off of like their Star Wars fan films.
Yeah.
And like it's pretty cool stuff. And like with the Zelda stuff that you draw, which is some of my favorite fan art you've done.
Sort of my mainstay, yeah.
Yeah, you can see like your love of color, you know, in all of them, and I think that's really cool. Even like the really simple ones that you've done that are like, there was like one you did recently that had like the border around it, or maybe it's not recently, but it was like, was that Zelda? Oh, I deleted Instagram. I don't know. I can't look it up. Crap.
Fair question for anything that I draw.
You know, this makes me remember a thing. I don't know if someone said this to me or I read it somewhere, but it was like all fic is fanfic.
Yeah. Completely.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, and like one facet of it is that in the like animation community, like fan art has always sort of been a part of it. Like fan art has not been looked down upon the way that it definitely is with other artistic practices. Like and I don't even know if I can say why that is. I think it's just been like a long-standing tradition.
Yeah.
I have a guess, actually.
Tell me.
So animation is a team artistic endeavor, right? And to make it work, everybody kind of ends up having to draw everybody else's characters. Maybe it's someone else's design, but you have to also do it. So everybody's already used to one thing, not necessarily inherently belonging to one artist, right?
You're so right.
It's the same. It's like the same idea around like, does anybody own Hamlet as a character? I don't think so. You know, I think it's similar. Like, so yeah.
I think that is a totally like accurate read on it. I think like it's almost like fan art by animators. It is a reflection of how you interpret a character, how you incorporate it into your style, because that like in terms of working on a project, you are having to interpret characters. and it's often like it's a reflection of your like draftsmanship, like how well can you get the anatomy of this character, or like if it's a landscape, like how do your landscape abilities apply with like a fantasy location or something.
Right.
Like, that's almost maybe even a cynical way of looking at it. Like how is your fan art a reflection of like your higher ability? But like that, I mean, like that's really tied up in it.
Yeah. And I mean, in the same hand, it's also like, I also think sometimes like really cool fan art for someone who originally designed the character is fun, because it's almost a way of the other artist saying is like, look how far away stylistically I can draw your character,
Yes.
but everybody still knows it's your character. Like, you did such a good job designing this that, like, you know, like, think about every way that anybody has ever drawn Superman or Batman, for example, right? And everybody, you can still look and you're like, yeah, that's him. You know, it's good design, right?
And that is like, yeah, I'm always, I feel like, pushing on the outer limits of that, like incorporating a character into my own style, almost to the point that they are like barely readable as the character anymore. Like that is kind of fun for me to play with.
It's how far away, how much can I make this not look like Link, but it's still
literally
Link.
Like it barely reads as Link, but like you guys get it. I think like that's also kind of the character functioning as intended, because he is meant to be like the player conduit. You are meant to have your own understanding of him. So I think like on an artistic level, like having your own way of portraying him says so much about the artist.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think a lot about, speaking of like good fan art, I think a lot about the Chan Chow Superman Batman soft lead comic. That's really great. And I think about the Kenna Jean Superman boards that are Superman and Lois boards that are really cute. And they're like two
McKenna.
Yeah.
McKenna Harris. Yeah, that's my classmate.
My God, really?
Yeah.
Holy crap, that's wild.
She rules. Yeah, she was a story supervisor on Luca recently. You can totally tell. Like that movie is her baby.
Okay, yeah.
Like, it's so cute.
Yeah. Yeah, she did a really cool Superman take that is like, it melts my heart, but like also it's like interesting seeing two different artists do two completely different takes, but they're still very recognizable and still incredibly like, oh wow, I wish this was also a movie. I would cry.
I know. I love that.
For this Superboy.
Yeah, characters that are not literally public domain, but like just public characters that are prominently known, but totally just like rife for personal fan interpretation. I love that.
So going to that point, I have newfound rage for copyright being what it is these days.
Yes, I'm sure you have like a...
Are you going to become an entertainment lawyer?
No. Oh, no. No, Derek, no.
Please.
I don't have that in my heart.
I took one semester of entertainment law and it broke my brain.
It's really not, it's not really that complicated an area of law, but it is maybe evil. So I'm not about it. So I'll let you know what area of law I'm about when I know what area of law I'm about.
Good.
But yeah, no, I think about the fact that for so long in human history, stories didn't belong to people, and so you could retell and remix, and there was a lot more value in that, or value placed on that.
Yeah.
You know, like there is no Sherlock Holmes story that isn't real or air quotes fanfic or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing, and I think that's perfect. And I sit here with a certain amount of rage that like basically everything Disney owns, except for maybe Star Wars still. I don't need to run some numbers on that if I would to be sure about the dates and whatnot, but shouldn't belong to anyone, period. So
well, I know at least with Star Wars, they recently opened up the fan art space a bit. They have like a page on their website that like details like here's what's okay, here's what's not okay if you're to make a fan
Interesting.
film.
But nobody can make profit from it.
No, yeah, no one
And
can,
that's-
that is a
and-
huge thing, yeah.
And that's for me, that's the problem, right? Is that they still get to say what's okay,
Yeah.
what the rules are. And I think that that's really sad in terms of shared storytelling as a medium,
Yeah.
as a thing, period. And it's
almost-
just
it feels like it's just a tiny little crumb that they're giving, like, well, here's a way that you can protect yourself from a copyright strike by knowing the rules, but it is still rules that the company is presenting as opposed to
Right.
artistic freedom.
Right,
Yep.
or fair use, which
Yeah.
fair use is already, it's not necessarily complicated, it's just it's difficult. It can be difficult to prove.
fair use is this does not constitute legal advice.
The most begrudging caveat ever.
Fair use is not that hard to actually prove. In reality, you just have to use it for specific purposes, and those purposes are almost never because I want to tell a story with this thing.
Right.
It's satire. It's education. It's those sorts of situations. If you're in those realms, it's pretty easy to get fair use for those sorts of things. Relatively speaking, of course. So yeah,
video
it's
essays.
video essays, for example. Yes. Yeah.
I was also thinking about that.
Yeah. I watched that really long one about that horror game that you recommended to me.
Oh, the Pathologic.
Pathologic.
The
Have you heard of this
H-bomber
game?
guy?
Yeah.
Mm,
Have you heard of Pathologic, Dane?
yeah.
Have you watched this like
No.
2-hour video essay?
You
Too
have
scared.
to. No, you
have
simply
to.
must.
Yeah,
it's
it's-
so
Okay, share me the
entertaining.
link. All right.
It's not that
Yeah.
I'm
it's-
It has
also-
been. I just had a flashback. I was like, it's been years since Clara's bullied me into doing something with horror.
Wait, what was the last time?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember, but it's been long. It's long enough that I've forgotten what it is. But I just had I just felt 18 again. Like I was just like,
God.
oh yeah, I remember this used to happen all the time, and it's a fucking miracle I've never been to like tear in the corn somehow.
Oh my god. I don't know if I went to tear in the corner. That sounds like it would.
That was way more Jules. Yeah, that was way
Okay.
more her.
Yeah, oh my
but-
god, that's so fun. Yeah, just earlier,
Yeah.
Derek and I were talking about how like we are both weenies when it comes to horror, but like me personally, I still just like I love it.
Yeah.
I love horror genre so much, and like I put myself through it because it is so rewarding for me. But what that does mean is like in order to protect myself, oftentimes with horror movies, I'm just like I have my eyes closed for an extended period of time. Like I'm still just like watching through my fingers, literally.
Mhm.
But like
Fair.
that is it is because it still rewards me so much.
Mhm.
But no, that pathologic video, it is not that scary.
Okay.
As a sensitive person, it is
All
really
right.
not that scary.
Yeah. It's
All right,
more
send me-
just,
Send me a link.
Yeah.
It's more just frustrating.
Fair
It's
enough.
so entertaining. The
and
way that
confusing.
he presents
Yeah.
the entire game. Like it's his pitch for it, but he's also like, don't play it.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's an incredible game, 10 out of 10. Do not play it under any circumstances.
Yeah. I think that's like the huge takeaway. I just remember watching that over the course of like 2 or 3 days and being
Mhm.
like, what is the life?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a video essay that is completely reliant on footage from the game. And like that is the case for so many video essays, and that is the problem that they run into, is that this is
Mhm.
footage which like I assume is fair use. Maybe I don't know, but like
Well, basically for academic purposes, for learning purposes, for all of this, it's basically going down to like, okay, if we can't quote your work, we can't talk about your work. Like, basically is that like, it's a question in which it comes down to like, well, are you going to put a copyright on every, like, Random House, are you going to put a copyright on every kid who ever writes an essay in
Right.
10th grade on To Kill a Mockingbird? Like, is that it's so there are these areas in which It's allowed. And one of the very key things I have noticed, having done very little research or work in the area, like very, very little, is that most of the fair use realms, like, end up being these situations in which you're never going to make a ton of money with this anyways. Like, I firmly believe that there is somebody out there who could make a Superman movie on $20,000 that would blow anything Warner Bros. Can do out of the water.
Totally.
I firmly believe that. And it has everything to do with the fact that they actually love, care, and understand the character and won't be under weird pressures and such could take a risk. That is why. That is why I think that.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie would make so much fucking money, is the thing. However, a video essay about Man of Steel, on the other hand, that can make one person some money, probably. Mm-hmm. Assuming they keep making video essays regularly and follow the algorithm and all of this, right?
Just sponsored by Squarespace.
Yep, sponsored by Squarespace. But you know what that is? That is an advertisement that's seen by 500,000, couple million people that Warner Brothers did not have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then are you saying that Warner Brothers would still consider that to be advantageous?
Yes. And therefore that they have not fought to have any laws changed to do that. I will say this. As someone going into law who likes what I'm learning in its own way, I will say this about the law. Every first-year law student will roughly take the following mix of classes that I am taking right now, which happens to be contracts, legislation and regulation's weird. We're gonna leave that off the table. It's basically legal analysis, the class, sort of. So it's not doctrinal. So it's contracts, civil procedure, which is the rules of civil lawsuits, torts, which is injury law, legal writing, of course. So we can kick that off to the side as well. And then next semester I will take constitutional law, criminal law, and property. So you take out the classes that are kind of just about like thinking in law ways and writing in law ways. We have 2 classes about managing business interests. That's people's property and that's contracts. You have a class based on the rules of legal procedure. You have 1 class about throwing people in jail. You have 1 class about the rules of civil lawsuits, and you have 1 class about injuries. However, non-criminal injuries, that's torts, and torts is in some ways about helping people out when they're harmed, often by companies, but it's also about defending torts, because you have to remember that's how each of these classes works, right? You are learning how the rules apply. So I would also, in this case, probably kick out Civ Pro and Con Law, because those are about the rules of our overall system. And you are left with 4 classes, 2 about the economy, 1 about throwing people in jail, and 1 that is sometimes about helping people. That is the doctrinal basis of law. Our system of law is based around protecting people's property and business interests over people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I firmly believe that the way our copyright and fair use works is because it doesn't harm the people who hold the copyright.
I just feel like I would struggle with that a lot.
Yeah, ethically.
Yeah, in terms of like the amount of the career that is oriented towards maintenance of the status quo. I have no doubt that that's something that you've probably thought about for a non-zero amount of time.
I scream every time I have to read Justice Scalia's words. Every time. It's heartbreaking. I will say this. the one ray of hope I will shine towards the law, and then I will get off this soapbox so we can talk about Zelda in a minute. Is the law ends up is less, for better and worse. The law is the people who practice it. Full stop. It is. There are rules. Yeah. There are rules. There are guidelines, but it is entirely the people who practice it. That's the lawyers. That's the judges. That's the attorneys general. That's all of it. And so depending on who's practicing and in what area, it changes what the law actually is. Right? Like you've heard about like certain types of prosecutors coming into being like the lead prosecutor in a city, and suddenly people aren't getting thrown in jail for minor marijuana possession. That is perfectly legal, and that is entirely due with the person in that position.
Okay.
So
wow, so big change really can happen. That was such a Pollyanna statement that I made just now. I guess because I really had no idea because I am really just not that familiar with law as a institution. So it's hard for me to understand how change happens.
Well, yeah, it changes. Like if you look at the Supreme Court, the reason it is the way it is, it's not because the Supreme Court discovered some weird like rule in Dobbs such that like we can overturn Roe. They decided that they wanted to overturn Roe, and then they found some legal rigmarole to do it. It is really that simple. The words conform. They constrain. The words of a law can constrain, but not entirely. And so it comes down to the people. So, for example, and I'm serious. Like, be very conscious of who you vote for as a judge. Be very conscious of the attorney general. Like all of that. That is hugely important, because here's a wild fact. So to be an to do something against the Constitution, you basically have to be an entity. Because to be against the Constitution, you have to be able to act at such a level that an individual almost never can, right? Because you need enough power to be, taking away people's rights, or right? Like you have to do that. There is an exception. As a lawyer, you, an individual, can act unconstitutionally, which is impossible for an average person to do.
So
that is so much to chew on.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that the 2008 Mystery Guitar Man proposal video starring the Iceman as a lawyer who goes rogue to avenge someone, that's perfectly legal.
No.
What?
That is not what I'm saying at all.
Oh, you're saying? Okay.
That is not even close to what I'm saying, but that's a nice try. It's a good try. It's a good try. More of what I'm saying is that, like, if you're really racist in your jury selections, you can be an unconstitutional lawyer. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. There we go.
Very different. Very different. There's also, I have been teased by one of my professors. One of them told me that you can also somehow be unconstitutional as a family law person, specifically. And I don't know how. I don't understand how. And so I need to find that out.
Teacher also, just didn't follow up.
Oh, no, because we were in Civ Pro and she was trying to teach us like how to appeal, and we're all focused on that. And she just said it in an offhand way. And I'm like, oh, God, I guess I have to come back to that someday. But right now I need to know what Rule 54B means. And so I'm oddly interested in family law, so I probably end up finding this out by taking her class. But also, she said one of the most metal things to me, and I keep telling people this because she hates the federal courts a little bit, because not only because they do shitty things, but because she thinks that they're lazy, and they are. The federal courts won't take tons and tons of cases. They'll just shunt them back onto state courts because they don't have jurisdiction. Which really means that the federal judge didn't want to do the job. And so what did she say? She's like, yeah, they're lazy. They don't do real work. It's real work getting people divorced and dead. And I was like, Jesus Christ. She's just terrifying. I need you to picture this coming out of the mouth of a woman who's like 5 foot nothing, and like tiny and just rage.
Sounds like my mom.
Kind of, yeah.
Very similar to me. Like, she said something very similar about how, like, yeah, dying is legally very complicated.
It is.
If you don't prepare for dying legally, it's a pain in the ass.
It causes problems.
Yeah.
And you can sue people and be sued posthumously.
Huh.
It's wonderful. Yeah, tons of cases.
So you
Bring
can
it on.
haunt beyond
No.
the grave. Bring it on 3.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
I dare you.
There's some poor sap who has to like pretend to be you, basically. No, and I don't mean like your lawyer who's like managing your estate. There's someone called an executor who has to basically sit there and kind of be you. It's very strange. Law is also big giant pretend is the other thing.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's playing pretend.
Wow.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, because like laws, like they're not, describing or reinforcing like immutable truths about humanity.
They
or society
thought so, though.
or anything.
No, but they thought so.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm not even joking. The common law was like they thought that it was like a scientific thing to be discovered, like from like the 1600s until like early 1900s. It's terrifying. Sorry, keep going. We should talk about Zelda soon. I've like pulled us off track into La Land.
Don't worry.
There's no track. Like we're not a train right now. It's more. This conversation is kind of like a soup.
Yeah.
Where we're sort of just like we're having a bite of potato. We're having a bite of carrot.
We're deep in the soup.
We're kind of going back and forth. We could go all the way back to high school. You don't know what's happening next.
Yeah.
We're keeping them on their toes.
We're deep in the soup. That's good. I like being deep in the soup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Before we eventually move on to talk about Zelda,
which is going to be in another episode, mind. So I don't know why I keep saying it like we're going to stay here.
Next time on, before that, Clara, since we've all had soapboxes, I wanted to give you a soapbox, a little Clara box.
Oh my God.
To say whatever you want for as long as you want right now.
Like
just about anything, and we'll just chime in.
You know what? Well, here's the thing. I'm an opinionated person. I'm a picky person. I could get on a soapbox and stay on a soapbox for hours and hours on a number of things. But just like one of the things that I had on my mind after listening to the episode with Leah, this actually does go back to the subject of high school. One of your like conclusions that you guys were making was high school fucking sucks. High school sucked for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I have my series of reasons that I feel like are the reasons that it sucks nearly universally for kids that go through high school. And I think one of the very core problems, none of us were getting enough sleep. None of us were getting the amount of sleep that people going through puberty need, or anyone needs.
Yeah,
agreed.
Because the school buses have to be on a schedule. They have to get us at a certain time in the morning. So it's simply dictated around that. And also, to an extent, dictated around sports practice afterwards. There needs to be enough time for sports to happen afterwards. So then that does also mean that there is time for band and extracurriculars, but the priority is always sports. So that is a huge reason. We're not getting enough sleep. So we're also not getting enough time to emotionally process things. Because we are young adults trying to understand more and more of the world. And the rest of our time out of school is monopolized by homework. Like, it does not have to be that way. There are other countries where homework is not a part of the school system, and it's like been indicated to be very successful.
preach on this. I'm back to doing homework. Still true.
Yeah.
It's 100% true. Continue.
I just it's definitely something that I have this sort of righteous feeling, maybe righteous anger about, that I think like homework, even though it was just a complete given for all of us throughout all of our academic lives, it did not have to be that way. We still totally could have been learning during the 7.5 entire hours during the day. So I think those two like very basic factors are just so damaging. Like sleep deprivation is so physically damaging to your body, and not having free time, not having any space to be your own person outside of productivity, that is incredibly mentally damaging. And it like obviously it is because most schools, especially the American public schools, such as we went to, they are oriented around capitalism. They are oriented around preparing us to be workers in school. Like, you know, we were talking about the SATs. They are not testing your knowledge. They are testing your ability to take the test. So your actual knowledge is not as functional. It is how you can follow the rules. And like nothing of what I'm saying right now is at all revolutionary. Like people have said this before and said it more intelligently. But I think I'm just like, I am very haunted by high school. And up until recently, I wasn't necessarily willing to use the word trauma for it, but I think I am actually profoundly traumatized by high school. I constantly have hilarious stress dreams about high school. One of my most constant recurring dreams is it's the first day of high school. I can't open my locker. I don't know where any of my classes are. I don't know what my next class is. I can't pull it up on my phone. And it just it feels so real. I dream very vividly. I kind of wish that I didn't. Sometimes I have fun dreams, and those are like when it's vivid, like, oh my gosh, I'm in the ocean. This is great. No, if I could turn off dreaming, I would make that choice. Maybe that's a little bit sad to say, but just like, oh my god, go into the settings, go into my brain,
go into your settings, turn it off, or schedule it from this hour to that hour.
I know, but it's something that's like stuck in my subconscious. And it's a little while ago, I was telling Christina about that, and she's like, well, you've had a couple times where like on the first day of school, like you actually like couldn't get into your locker and you had like problems with that. I was like, oh yeah, I so did. So it is sort of like it is based on concrete experiences that I've had, but it just like when it's in dream form, it's this like very concentrated sort of non-literal manifestation of this like stress that like kind of got trapped in my subconscious. So yeah, part of why I have this righteous anger is for the state of everyone, but it's also just like for myself.
Yeah.
Shit sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like for me, the best part of high school was mainly just my friends. It was like I had a really great friend group. I had you guys, and I still have you guys. Like that is, I really value that. Like looking back on high school, that's really my favorite part of it. And my second favorite part of it was the classes that were fun, like world history with Boris. That was great.
Yeah, we all had that class together.
Yeah,
that was fun.
that was
my
a winner.
art classes were great.
AP Euro was good. Oh, sorry, I'm going to derail this. My sister has mainland right now.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And she had Shoop last year. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she doesn't like either of them.
Fair.
Because they're hard.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which, it's bad. High school is bad.
Uh-huh.
And it's not voluntary, right? Like that's the other thing that like kills me about it is like law school is kicking my ass right now. It is. I signed up consciously, willingly. I signed up for 1.5 years every day. That's very different. It changes your it changes your perspective on it, right? Like, as opposed to being like, you have to be here, you have to take these classes, you don't get a choice, and you're going to be penalized, and you're in comparison with all of your peers in a really bad way, and all it sucks.
Yeah, that's another
Yeah.
aspect of it, like the punishment, or just like the reaction to a student struggling so often is just the opposite of what they need. If a student is not doing well, they need support. Obviously, situations are different, but like students get punished for failure rather than increased support.
Yeah. Like, how can we help you not fail next time? Like,
Yeah.
instead of it being like, well, you just can't do it. You just got to figure it out because something's wrong with you. Which is it's just never great to tell a kid in their puberty times, and especially like in not just middle school, but the high school especially, just because like I don't know, high school's like, I mean, like high school, especially our high school, like a lot of Midwest high schools, was like, sports, cheerleaders, and then everyone else. Sports, cheerleaders, I guess theater and band kids, followed by like the robotics kids, and then like our little section of the world, which was a good chunk of the arts kids, and a few stragglers from the engineering department.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it was funny. You described our group as being like the outcasts of the outcasts, which like that's kind of funny to me. I don't think I felt like an outcast in the like grander scheme of school, because we just like we kept to ourselves.
Yeah.
It was like our group was our group, and there wasn't like, in terms of unifying factors, like there was band, there was theater, but not like universally for us. I think like one of the pretty common factors was we were a bunch of overachievers. Dane, I remember you being an exception to that, and I kind of wish I would have taken a page out of your book in high school, because I overachieved, and for what? I went to I went to art school after high school. Like, my grades did not matter, but I just like separate of teacher approval, separate of parental approval, over the course of those 4 years, or even the 7 years if you're including middle school, I built up these personal standards that were like inextricable from the authority standards, where like the ways that I could fail were just numerous. Oh my god.
Yeah, I remember.
Relaxed.
I remember that you, Christina, Amy, Robert, he who shall not be named, Cordell, like there were a bunch of people. You guys were like very Gage. You guys were very high academic achievers.
Yes.
And I want to be really clear. What she means by relaxed is I was cool getting like an 89 or 90 and being like, nice. Like, I was like, that's a weighted 5, or B+ in this weighted class. That's still an A. Good for me. Like, that's what we mean by relaxed.
So that gives you an idea of like what my standards were.
Yeah.
You wanted that A, but it's actually an A+ or whatever, or like a 4, but it's actually a weighted. But because you wanted a 5 that's a weighted 6. I don't know how math works.
Yeah, you guys were
what?
You guys were gunning for like 4.5 plus GPAs. Was like what was going on.
Yeah.
I guess I would like, just in case, because I didn't lock into going to art school until second part of junior year, when we're all applying to stuff. But even then, like, I would have been okay. Like, my parents were not excessively strict about grades, and I'm really grateful for that. They still, they had high expectations for me, sure, but I wouldn't be punished, for instance. So, girl, just get a B. Live with it.
Yeah, well, that's... what's also weird, though? Art school has surprisingly high expectations for your
Mhm.
grades and test scores. Like the college I went to, I looked at the chart of what was required, and they showed me like, this is where most people applying and who have gotten in are. This is where you are, and I wasn't even on the graph. I was below the axis.
Really?
Yeah, they
That
were
wasn't
like,
necessarily the case for me.
yeah, okay, yeah. I don't know why, but my college was like, yeah, you need at least a 29 at ACT and like at least a 4.2 GPA, and I had neither of those.
Oh.
And so I was like, I'm literally gonna only get in by the skin of my portfolio, and that's terrifying. But at the same time, I think the reason why I always refer to our friend group as like the outcasts of outcasts is because like I had the weird, I don't want to say privilege, but I was interacting with a lot of the greater student body because of like yearbook and like video announcements and other clubs, and people would always be like, who do you hang out with? And I'd be like, I hang out with like, and I'd list all the folks, and they're like, who are they? And it's like, oh, that's weird. And they were like,
Wait,
wait,
people
who are
didn't know
you?
us.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, I'm that guy that does those bad video announcements. And they're like, oh yeah, the unfunny announcements. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I was like known for. And so it was like,
That wasn't a yes of agreement. That was a yes of like, that's hilarious.
yes, that's like that was the student body's perception of like our strange friend group. Because also we were like, because like also like I think like, you know, it's like our school, our class only had like 500 kids, and I'd make all these YouTube videos featuring everyone, and those would get like 400 views.
You
And
mean
so
like the individual class or like the whole student body? I thought the whole student body was more like 1,200.
Yeah, whole student
Yeah.
body. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
that's
our
what you're
individual like senior class was like 420 kids.
Right.
Our senior class was particularly big.
We were actually small.
Really?
Yeah, we were I think the smallest one by the time we graduated,
Oh.
because the class after us was like 500 plus, and it's
Yeah.
only gotten bigger. But
Interesting.
you know, like people used to watch all these videos that I'd make of all of us, and like I think they just had this weird dissociation that we were real people. We were just a bunch of people on YouTube, on early Facebook,
Yeah.
Yeah.
back
we
in the
just-
day.
Most of us just kind of kept to ourselves.
Yeah.
I just like, people did not know me. I did not have like a school-wide reputation or anything. Like I think if anyone was gonna know me like one step removed, they would be like, oh, she's the like art kid, right? Like she does art. You know, like I think I know her. I've seen her around. But like I did not have a reputation, which frankly, it's
Arguably,
fine.
that's probably the best part. Is that we
I did though.
Oh yeah, you did.
I did.
Yes.
That
Yes, you
was
did.
partially my dating, and that was partially being a cancer survivor though.
Right.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
So that do you think like by the end of high school, what like percentage of the student body would have known you to some extent?
I'm gonna say high, something like 90%. And my reasoning behind this is, as I have stuck around in the area, I am routinely recognized by people who went to high school who recognize me that I do not recognize.
That is wild.
Wow, you're like a celebrity,
No.
brah.
Ew.
Nope.
Yo,
Not even
you
close.
gotta get like a pair of like Gucci sunglasses that
I
say
know.
Gucci on them.
Nope,
just so
I do
you
not.
can't
I do not
see.
have to do that,
And then
and
you
I
gotta
will
wear
not
all
do
these
it.
Chains. I'm gonna get you some
I don't-
carat workout chains.
It's gonna be okay. I promise it's gonna be okay.
And then like you can like just dress like a Kingdom Hearts character and
Slay.
be super cool.
I'm gonna pass if that's cool. I'm gonna
No.
pass.
No, I'm kidding. You can pass.
Clara, I did, but I know we have to wrap up this up, but I do want to talk to. I just you were talking about the whole like grades thing and how it's like chill out, get a B. So new, fun, interesting thing about law school. To get into law school, you have to be that person where you can't chill out about getting the B.
Yeah.
Especially in undergrad, you have to do that, where it gets actually harder to, because you can't play like the weighted game or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I had an easier time because I was in music, and so like the number of classes that were actually academically challenging every semester was pretty low as compared to being like I showed up every day for band, I got an A. Like I had an easier time with that. But what that I have noticed is, so do you guys know how law school is graded? Just
No.
it's graded on a curve. Specifically a B plus median curve.
Is that
which
high
means
or low for a curve?
it's kind of high.
Okay.
Where basically the middle person has to get a B plus. And so what that means is that the vast majority of people get a B plus in their class. Like that's what you get. And if you do, you're doing great. Like, because you're hanging with everybody, you're grasping the material, nobody's worried. Like, that's great if you have a B plus average. However, the way grading works is basically there is almost nothing for like participation or like side. You just take your exam, you get that one grade, and that's it, basically. But there have been a couple of side assignments in a couple of classes, and some people who I've watched who have clearly never gotten lower than an A- on anything they've ever done in their life get handed a B, or God forbid a C+, for the first time. It is very hard to watch 22, 23, 24-year-olds crying in a hall. It is like I am. They bug me a little bit. Like, that gets under my skin. It is weird. It is really weird because, like, basically the new system is asking you to be happy with something that the system up until this point has told them that is bad, and under those like self-imposed, parental imposed, I don't know, frameworks. And
Really
so it's
imposed
just
by many different facets depending on
yeah. And so it's really weird. It's really weird to watch people who go about like day to day. These are like normal adults, like, you know, young adults, but like normal adults. Smart, ask good questions, funny, all of it, and then like break down over a letter on a paper in the hall, and I'm just like, what is happening? And I think that speaks to what you were saying, Clara, about the trauma. It's traumatic, right? Because I can't think of another reason. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
They are operating within a framework that they're used to. They're operating under expectations, really high expectations, that if you zoom out, like if you have sort of a perspective that you, Dane, have, it'll seem silly, but like that is what they know.
Yeah.
So I relate to both the kid crying and also you being annoyed. Like, it sucks.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's like, I tried talking to one of them because I was so thrown. I thought something much worse was going on, and I tried this like frame of reference where I was like, look, like don't stress. It's a B. This was the average. This meant you're with all of us. Like, everybody, like, it's like, I gotta be, they gotta be, like, we're all here. Like, don't you think everybody here is kind of brilliant and awesome? Don't you want to be average compared to these people? I do. I want to be average when compared to you. Like, I want to be with you in that. Like, you're awesome. Did not work. I thought that was like a very like, it did not work. And so I was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna pretend I didn't see next time. I think I'm just gonna walk on by.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Rip.
The K through JD, folks.
Probably would have cheered me up.
Yeah. I mean, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have like had to clasp my hand over my mouth to prevent myself from laughing. Because sometimes it's like when like you think something's gonna be like, when you prepare yourself for the worst and you find out it's actually something like to you is like kind of not that bad. It's like, oh, how do I do that?
Yeah.
So I'm terrible at that, but
it's all about perspective. I guess what I'm saying is I wish I knew a little bit more about what like you went through, Clara, because I want to have more sympathy and empathy for them, I guess, is what I'm saying.
That's okay. I think like what you've said, you already understand, like on a intellectual, logical level, what the reason is. It's expectations. It's what they know. It's what they're used to. It's probably their parents. It's probably authority, some combination of it. It's definitely how they've synthesized that into their own expectations.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Thank you for giving me advice on law school. I appreciate that.
God,
Yeah.
who knew that's what I would be doing today?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Soup.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we've finished our soup. In probably a record Dane and Derek episode.
Yeah.
So
How are you going to cut this one down?
I don't know. Maybe I won't, just for the shits and the
Extended
giggles.
cut.
Yeah.
Soup.
Well, with that, as you probably heard us say several times, next week, or whenever the next episode comes out, I don't know if it'll be next week, we'll be talking about The Legend of Zelda, also with Clara. But for now, we're going to say goodbye. So,
Bye, friends.
Farewell.
bye-bye.